Boom! What is up, woke folk? This week, I interviewed New York Times bestselling author, coach, ex-bodybuilder, Ironman triathlete, and overall just health guru, Ben Greenfield, considered one of the world's authorities when it comes to health and training and well-being. And boy, did he crank out some awesome stuff on this podcast. If you want to feel amazing in the body, you want to get healthy, if your body truly is your temple, do not miss this episode. And please, if you're enjoying the podcast, do us a favor. Take 10 seconds, write us a little comment, give us a plug on iTunes, because frankly, I go on there and I'm like, oh, there's a couple of great comments, but it's a couple. Guys, seriously, rate the fucking podcast, will you? I love you, and see you on the flip side. Ciao.
Are you ready to get woke? Welcome to the Woke as F*** podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
Boom! There he is.
What's shaking, dude?
Dude, I'm all up in your stuff, man. I've been checking out your videos for like 2 days now, so I feel like pretty much know you like as good as anybody, I think, at this point.
Sick. Kind of creepy, but sick.
It's creepy. I realized what I was doing. I'm just there like watching this dude talking about how he works out and all this crazy Spartan races, and just there sitting there with my wife right next to me, just checking out your stuff. And after a while, I'm like, this is getting a bit weird. I want to get this over with.
Yeah.
So it's Easter Monday. I'm assuming you're sitting there with a belly full of some animal you shot with your bow and arrow yesterday. Is that correct?
I actually had prime rib that I didn't shoot, and I'm not sitting. I'm walking on my treadmill. Yeah, I did eat a copious amount of supper yesterday. Little bit of green beans and bacon and prime rib and beet arugula salad and some kind of like a coconut ice cream. And yeah, definitely. But that was my one meal. A lot of times on a big day like that, like that's the only meal I eat all day. So I fast all day, have that huge meal, fast the rest of the day. Give myself a good 16 hours of cellular autophagy to clean things up, and then
There's my intermittent fasting question right out of the door. All right, I don't even have to do that one now.
Yeah.
Ben says yes.
Yes.
So just to
there are some exceptions to that, but yeah.
Well, this one won't be boring. I know people. You get all these health guys interviewing you, and it's the same question: how do I gain muscle and not and lose fat at the same? This isn't going to be like that. It's a little bit different. If you listen to, I'm secretly hoping you listen to the first episode.
I listened to the first 8 minutes, like you told me to.
Right. Well, I was secretly hoping you'd go the extra mile, but it's cool. So
wish I had the time.
Anything go. Yeah. No, I realize you're busy as shit, so I get it. So this podcast, there's no, because I know sometimes you're like, oh, should I swear? There's no nothing. You can do anything. You can say anything. We love going into the areas where, people don't talk about, we're not supposed to talk about. We like to get real here. So please feel free. Do not be censored in any way, in any capacity.
Well, I will talk about my anus the whole time then. That's great.
Beautiful. Hey, I've had stuff in there, and it's been good for cleansing. It's been good for sexual enjoyment. It's a beautiful place, the anus. It's no joke.
That's right, baby. THC suppositories. Can't go wrong.
THC, and I just don't trust a man who hasn't put one of his fingers up his own butt. That's just my personal policy.
That's right. Yes. As long as he's washed said finger. Yes.
Okay, this is a good way to start. So, I know, Ben, that it doesn't seem like it now, but you're actually an introverted guy and used to be a dork, basically. Reading sci-fi in your room, playing video games. That was you. And
hey, that's not dorky. That's cool now, isn't it? I mean, I do believe that everybody wearing the what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg-esque hoodies, playing World of Warcraft in their basement, like those are the cool kids now, right?
Well, it depends who you ask, I suppose.
Oh. You're dashing my dreams.
Those dreams were crushed ages ago, but I went through a phase too.
Yeah,
but my question was,
you're right. I was the president of the chess club, and I played violin for 13 years, and I was homeschooled, and I wrote fantasy fiction and played World of Warcraft online. That was just like my life growing up, and really, I was not into sports or like ripping my shirt off and running around the forest half naked or throwing spears at shit until I discovered tennis. And tennis was kind of like my entry into the world of like, athleticism and nutrition and biohacking and fitness and stuff like that. Most of that was honestly because I had a crush on Michelle, my high school tennis instructor, and I just really wanted to get really, really good so that Michelle would dream about me.
Interesting. Okay, this is very interesting because you've answered 2 questions in a row. Because the question
wow.
was, what actually got you into health in the first place?
I'm psychic.
Is it so? You knew that was going to get you the woman.
Yeah, no, I'm psychic in that I knew you were going to ask that question. So yeah,
Okay.
the answer is
No, that was impressive.
the answer is tennis. And then when I was playing tennis, like there was this guy named Bruce. His son was my little brother's pretty good friend, and so Bruce would like bring Andrew, his son, over to hang out with my little brother. And Bruce was a bodybuilder, right? And so he was just like this enormous ripped dude who would show up, and I would just ask him little questions every now and again when he was over, like, what do you eat? And how do you train? What do your workouts look like? And then there was this other guy named Raphael who was like a family friend. He would come over for dinner sometimes, and he was like the state powerlifting champion. So I would also ask him, I'm like, so how do you decide what kind of barbell to get, and what should I put in this little gym that I'm building up in my room? And so, there are some of these guys who I just kind of like, dip into their head for information here and there. And most of it for me was honestly just because I wanted to like get better at tennis. But then when I was getting better at tennis, I also noticed like, my muscles were getting bigger and girls were liking that. And like there was all sorts of kind of like extra bonuses to biohacking my body for tennis that wound up really sucking me deep into like the fitness and the nutrition realm initially, with just like a lot of bro science / self-education / picking other dudes' brains.
So you admit that this whole getting ripped thing was pretty much a way to get girls.
Yeah, of course. that and hit a tennis ball harder.
Okay, because I say it half jokingly, but I have so many clients that are lawyers, doctors, and they're miserable, and I'm coaching them to like change their lives and get happy. And I'm like, dude, why did you become a lawyer? 8 years, studying your ass off. And the answer is often, I wanted to get chicks. I thought if I had that job, and with the money and all this, I was gonna get chicks. So so for so many men out there getting ripped, that's because they want to meet the chicks.
Well, I mean, there's really 3 things that drive a man: to protect, to provide, and to procreate. Right. And so, in many cases, when you're pursuing, like, let's say fitness goals, you're kind of amplifying all 3, right? Because you're able to protect your fellow man or woman or child quite a bit better when you're actually able to, pick up a heavy rock in the forest without getting tired, which I know everybody fantasizes about, is picking up a heavy rock in the forest.
That is so
and
hot.
then as far as provision, right, it allows you to be able to like work and go out and slay a dragon and put food on the table when you're actually able to, move in a way that's not like the fat slobs in the movie WALL-E. And then procreate, right? You're able to actually get members of the opposite sex to look at you in a loving, lustful way, and you're able to pursue them accordingly. So yeah, protect, provide, procreate. I mean, like, fitness allows you to tap into a lot of that stuff.
It does. And did you actually have a moment where you're just like, okay, I'm getting really serious about health. This could be my career. This could be it. This is it.
Oh yeah, sure. So when I was in college, I studied physiology and biomechanics, and 4 years in, made a decision that I wanted to go to medical school, right? So I took all the organic chemistry and biochem and molecular biology, and I started to teach the anatomy and physiology class, and took all these like 400 and 500 level human nutrition and pharmaceuticals classes, and realized like not only did I love that stuff and I loved human science and the human body, but I really wanted to, for a period of time there, actually just be like what I consider to be the pinnacle of health, which was a physician. I realized at a certain point in that journey that, based off of the kind of like the broken modern medical system and the fact that most of the people who I met practicing westernized medicine were unhappy and unhealthy themselves, that maybe that wasn't the best way to serve others. However, there was a period of time where, it was pretty much me wanting to be able to be, not only just like a doctor, but one of the best healthcare providers on the face of the planet. And eventually I kind of pivoted out of that and decided I kind of like fitness and physiology almost more than medicine. But yeah, it was in college. I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay, interesting. And it sounds like that came from that you wanted to serve, you wanted to help other people. Even at that early age, you had that feeling.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, my dad owned an ambulance business, and he was an EMT and a paramedic, and so I'd spend time on the ambulance and in hospitals and go to medical conferences with him, and like I was kind of familiar with like the medicine and health scene, anyways. And so yeah, that it was certainly something I experienced a little bit, but it was really upon spending a lot of time at the hospital, in doctors' offices, doing internships and practicums with physicians, that I realized that maybe that was a side of medicine that I didn't find as exciting as I thought I might.
It's interesting. You brought up a point that I was going to ask you later, but I think the time seems to be now. I find it depressing that so many people want to help. Like, they genuinely have a good intention. They want to help. They want to become doctors to help people. But for a variety of reasons, the system is totally destroyed. Like, being a normal doctor, going through that education, telling people to do chemotherapy when they get cancer, it's absolutely ridiculous. And people just don't know that there's other ways they can serve much better. Do you find it kind of almost depressing that there's all these people going to be doctors who do have good intentions, but are really not going to be able to do that much good out there?
Yeah,
I mean, sad.
when you look at the fact that you get like 4 weeks, I think, max of education in like healthy nutrition, and even that is quote healthy unquote nutrition. It's basically like USDA food pyramid type of stuff. Mm-hmm. When you look at the fact that you're basically getting much of your medical education funded by pharmaceutical lobbyists, and so you've got your antidepressant labeled mug and your statin cholesterol blocking pen, and all these things that kind of allow industry to plant subliminal messages in your head. And I'm just releasing this coming Wednesday on my own podcast a fascinating interview with a person who wrote a book called Drug Dealer MD, about just like how prevalent the problem is with everything from like painkiller prescriptions to a litigious society where a doctor can't even in many cases make recommendations for a lot of like alternative therapies, et cetera, because they could get sued. It's just weird how our medical system works. So yeah, it is kind of sad. Well, and it's the cool thing, like though the happy side of it is that we also live in a society where you can pretty much take like half this stuff into your own hands now, right? Like everything from places like Wellness FX or Direct Labs or Inside Tracker or these websites where you can just literally go there, you buy whatever blood test you want, you get a little form sent to you, and you just go off and waltz into a lab and get all the tests taken yourself. And they've got like people on the other end who will talk to you and go through your results with you. And you can actually go out and get the test that you want yourself. There's a lot of websites and apps now where physicians will work with you, via like what you and I are doing right now. Like, we're on Skype, and a lot of people are now meeting with their docs, using systems like that. I mean, like, there are ways to go about taking your medical care into your own hands, but admittedly, you also have to have some cash on hand to do that. I mean, you can have in the US, for example, like a flexible savings account or what's called a health savings account, where you can use money, like tax deductible money that you put away up to $6,000 a year to spend on stuff like that. But that the average person is still in a situation where they need health insurance. They need to actually have like a third party provider help them out with many of their healthcare situations. And so yeah, it can be tough unless you've got a little bit of extra money to spend on taking your medical care into your own hands.
Ben, I'm going to ask you something that may or may not be controversial. Do you believe cancer is an incurable disease?
Oh, I thought it was going to be way more controversial than that. Ask me if I.
Do you think there's a cure for cancer?
One can vaccinate oneself using coffee enemas. So the cancer is not an incurable disease. Cancer is just a metabolic disorder. Cancer is basically a situation in which your mitochondria, your cell's powerhouses, whether due to poor air or poor light or poor water or poor electricity or poor food or poor movement patterns, become dysfunctional, right? And granted, you can have a genetic predisposition for your mitochondria to become more dysfunctional than someone else's, but ultimately that is simply dynamite, and dynamite is not going to go off unless you actually hold a matchup to it. But when I say cancer is a metabolic disease, what I mean by that is that once those mitochondria become dysfunctional, they begin to only be able to be reliant on glucose, or sugar as their primary fuel source. And the main thing that a cell will churn out is something everybody has felt before who has exercised, and that's lactic acid. When a cell is only burning glucose as a fuel, the only thing it's going to churn out is lactic acid. Once you've created an acidotic or an acid-filled clump of cells or cellular area because of mitochondrial deficiencies, then what happens is you've got undifferentiated cell growth and tumors and cancer because of that metabolic disorder. There are books that highlight this in great detail, such as Tripping Over the Truth, fantastic book on cancer. Another one is Dr. Mercola's new book, Fat as Fuel. I've interviewed both those guys on my show, and we've talked about this in great detail. I've also interviewed people on my show, like one guy recently. We had a 2-hour podcast where he healed himself of stage 4 prostate cancer by treating it as a metabolic disease rather than just like radiating the hell out of his body and killing a bunch of tissue. The fact is, once you begin to take care of your mitochondria, once you begin to address hidden variables in your environment like air, light, water, electricity, and also some of the more apparent things like food and movement, you actually pretty much get to a state where not only is your risk for cancer very low, but that's a way that you can actually cure cancer by healing mitochondria and by cutting off the main fuel source for cancer, which is glucose. You can actually put yourself in a situation where cancer is a curable disease, and it's been proven over and over again. In the same way that Alzheimer's, an irreversible dementia of the brain, people have been cured of that by using things like, multifactorial combinations of photobiomodulation or light therapy for the head, ketosis, high-dose DHA, all sorts of different variables. It's just that a lot of this stuff flies under the radar because it's not it's not something patentable by pharmaceutical companies, right. Or I don't want. I'm totally not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying that. I guess short answer to your question is no. Cancer isn't an incurable disease.
I know. I just wanted to see what you would say. My personal theory is that certain forces that want to make lots of money and are not necessarily aligned with the greater good of humanity, they don't want us to know about that stuff, and therefore this is why you see people getting arrested even for curing cancer using natural methods. And I think it's one of the saddest things in the world.
Yeah, I don't think
waking up to it.
I don't think there's any like evil guy up in a skyscraper like the dude. What's the guy's name in The Simpsons?
Oh yeah, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, Mr. Burns,
Mr.
like
Burns.
like cracking their knuckles. Or I want to kill people with cancer. But there are people who know that like they could make more money off of chemotherapy drugs are a huge bundle of money for a lot of pharmaceutical companies. If they can make more money off of that than they can by telling somebody not to say like eat a high sugar diet when they have a tumor, or cut off high methionine protein sources such as, red meat if they have high cancer risk, things like that, like basic choices that aren't that expensive. In many cases, people are going to choose a thing that pays them just a little bit more. It's unfortunately, just human evolutionary psychology. So it's not necessarily someone wanting to kill people with cancer as much as someone wanting to make more money off a solution that seems more profitable.
Well, this leads us beautifully into the next piece.
Yeah, that was uplifting.
I know you've got. Yeah, that was uplifting. That's let's just end it right there. No, so you've got nothing perks up a podcast like cancer, folks.
At least we didn't talk about chemtrails yet.
Chemtrails is coming up, Ben. Chemtrails are coming up.
I wait with bated breath.
Well, you brought it up. I know you've got your own little health oasis there, right? And you've got you're blocking your EMF. You know about the blue light. You avoid sitting. Obviously proper diet supplementation. So you've said that being in your house is basically like being in the forest. You don't want any of this artificial shit messing with you in any way, which is amazing.
I don't live in a smart home. I live in a dumb home. There's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
there's no
it's
Bluetooth.
amazing.
There's no like artificial air or artificial light. It's all like healthy water from the well outside, no electrical frequencies bouncing around the house. So, yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. I also hard plug in my laptop, so I only use Wi-Fi when absolutely, when I have to. Otherwise, I plug it in. I got everything on there.
For the record, my wife shaves her armpits and wears panties, so we're not hippies.
Okay, I got you. Hey, I don't think keeping your body in pristine condition makes you a hippie.
I do. Especially if you smell like
right.
patchouli oil and BO.
Patchouli. So So you've got that on lockdown, but would you agree with the statement that the average kind of, ignorant human being living in a city that just doesn't know about all this stuff is, by definition, living in a toxic environment?
Yeah, in most cases, yeah. I mean, and toxic can be such like a woo-woo word, right? But yeah, I mean, if you're in the average apartment in, say, like New York City, you probably do have a lot of mold and fungi, growing around you, and you probably do have a lot of Wi-Fi signals bouncing around your house, and you probably do have a huge amount of like fluorescent or LED blue light exposure, which, by the way, is classified as a carcinogen. You probably do have birth control pills and pharmaceuticals in your water supply. I'm not saying this kind of stuff to like say, oh, you're screwed, you're going to drop dead. I mean, you can go to Amazon, get a HEPA air filter for a little over $100 that you put in your house to filter out like the mold and the fungi. Grab a few biological LED bulbs from a company like Lighting Science, unscrew the ones that are in your house and put those up instead. Hardwire into your Wi-Fi router and turn the actual Wi-Fi signal off, and put like a little water filter underneath your sink, right? And all of a sudden you've mitigated all those issues I just talked about. It's not like, if you're a smart, informed human being, you can totally detox your environment, even if you live in the city, and it's not that expensive or complicated to do. You just have to know what to do. So yeah, people are, but it's not like it's like some hopeless environment you got to move out to the sticks. You just need to like take your health into your own hands and freaking educate yourself, and quit drinking estrogen out of your tap water.
Dude, amen to that, brother. That's all I can say. So other than everything you just mentioned, what would you say are the greatest threats today to human health and well-being?
The greatest threats, like the biggies, I would say, just because I spend half my life, like traveling around the world and speaking and, on airplanes and all over the place. I would say one is inactivity, right? You go through the average airport, people are sitting and waiting for the airplane to leave. They are standing on the escalator. They're not moving. They're not stretching. They're eating crap food. I mean, like, an airport is a perfect place to see everything that's wrong. When I'm at the airport, I'm walking everywhere. I'm holding my bags in as biomechanically as disadvantaged as possible so that I'm building new muscles, and I'm like lifting weights as I go through the airport. I am traveling with like a couple of avocados, a can of sardines, things that allow me to not have to use like the airport food. And I'm basically taking my movement and my nutrition into my own hands. So that's one thing, is people, because there's a chair, people sit. Mm-hmm. Because there's a Five Guys Burgers, people, is that what it's called? Five Guys Burgers?
Yeah.
That's what it's called. Yeah. People will buy the burger and the fries rather than just like grabbing something they got from the grocery store on their way to the airport. When they're at the gate, people will sit because everybody else is sitting, rather than just like, throwing in a quick yoga session, throwing in some jumping jacks, and so that's one thing, is people fall prey to societal expectations that we should sit and then we should eat whatever food happens to be around because that's the food that's around, rather than taking our nutrition into our own hands. That's a big one, is just like inactivity and shitty food, because we're falling prey to societal expectations, and we don't want to be that embarrassing person at the airport who's like doing 100 jumping jacks before their plane leaves and eating an avocado, right? But that's the type of mindset that you need to have if you want to be that truly like infinitely healthy person. So that's one thing. Another one that I'd say is a biggie. I talked about air and light and water and electricity, but I'll go back to the electricity piece real quick. And that's just like basic like smartphone hygiene and laptop hygiene, right? Don't fry your gonads with your laptop and your cell phone. Half the people you see using them have them down around their crotch, right? It's not like you can't have a case for your phone. It's not like you can't have the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth signal turned off on your phone if you're not using those functions. It's not like you can't have one of those little anti-radiation pads that you put underneath your laptop, so when you put it in your lap, you're not frying your balls off. But that's something you don't see a lot of people doing. It's not, I use a laptop, I use a phone, but my laptop's got an anti-radiation pad under it. It's got like the blue light blocking software installed on it. Mm-hmm. It's in airplane mode unless I actually, or in Wi-Fi off mode, right? Unless I happen to be using the Wi-Fi signal. And same thing for the phone, right? Bluetooth off, Wi-Fi off. It's inside one of those little anti-radiation cases. And it's like, I embrace modern technology, I'm just smart about it and don't assume it's like perfectly safe for my body, because it's not. And so that's another big one, would be just like improper use of electricity, and the assumption that, again, like societal expectations, right? Everybody else has their Wi-Fi and their Bluetooth on and their phone held up to their ear and their laptop in their lap, so it must be okay. So that's one thing. And then I would say, like, one other thing, if I could throw one other at you, it would just be like the one thing that we probably do more of than anything else during the day in terms of what we put into our bodies, and that's water. Right? Like, I have on my desk here glass sparkling water. It's like just like San Pellegrino water, right? Like, I get a case shipped to me each month from Amazon. It doesn't cost me very much, but I've got this glass bottled water, right? So there's not a lot of plastics, not a lot of estrogens. It's pure, clean, mineralized water. And then I have a water filter in my house, right? So when I'm drinking water all day, it's actually good, clean, clear water. And when I travel, when I'm at a hotel room, what I do, first thing I do when I walk into a hotel is I have my little portable water filter. It's just like it's a Berkey Sport water bottle. It just looks like any water bottle, but when you suck through the straw, it's actually filtering the water. So if I have to fill up the water from my hotel room tap or from the airport water fountain, it's at least filtering out everything. And the first thing I do is I pick up the phone. When I get to my hotel, I call the front desk, I ask them for a mini fridge. Most places will give you a mini fridge for free. Put that in my room, and now voila, I can be somewhere a week, and I can totally go to the grocery store, put a bunch of fresh food in the mini refrigerator, and feed off of that rather than crappy water and crappy food from somewhere else. So again, it's like taking your health into your own hands by just figuring out the kind of things you're consuming a lot of and going for the healthy versions of them. So those would be three things, right? Like just basic movement and food habits that don't fall prey to societal expectations, electrical use habits that actually take into account the fact that this stuff actually wasn't designed to be healthy for us, but can be hacked to at least not be bad for us. And then taking into account staples that you consume all day long, like water, and making sure that the water is actually, as good a stuff as you can get.
Great answer. I love it. I just keep my phone off, and when I need to make a call, I turn it on. I don't even mess with it. I love how you mentioned societal expectations, and it's so fascinating that we will let what other people think about us fitting into society affect our health negatively. For the last 10 years, most of my income and my business was taking guys who were too shy, too scared of rejection to talk to girls, literally making them stop give a fuck what people think and go and flirt with girls. And it changed their lives dramatically, because they went from these guys who were living in fear to guys who did not give a shit what anybody thought. And then they, after getting a girlfriend, they go off and they start their own businesses and they go do other stuff. And it's amazing. And so we really are it's just fascinating to hear you say that those societal expectations keep you eating fucking burgers and drinking tap water like everyone else. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I think for any human to be successful in life, you got to quit that. You got to be your own human being and do what feels right for you and do your own research. Don't just follow the herd, because the herd, frankly, are a bunch of morons. And right. I hate to say it, but
exactly,
it's true.
Exactly. I mean, like the person who's like at the airport and says, "Oh, I can't work out, there's no gym," has never tried to just like grab one of those window frames hanging out at the gate and do a few pull-ups off it, and then like go into the shared restroom with a little lock on it and like do 100 burpees, then wash your hands. I mean, like, there are ways to like just do what other people aren't doing. And if you do, like, honestly, like if you, I forget how the phrase goes, right? But it's basically like, if you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to end up, looking and feeling and performing like everybody else, right? If you're that person who's doing your own thing, right? So for me, it's I even take this into career, right? I'm an author, but I'm also a professional athlete. I'm also speaking. I'm running my company. So it's hard for me to actually find the time to say, right, but I'll, whip open my laptop on an Uber and write like 3 paragraphs. And then while I'm standing in line, or while I'm like checking in to like get my boarding pass printed at the airport, I'll pull up my computer and set it up on top of the counter and just write like 2 sentences. And so for me, yeah, not a lot of other people are pulling out their laptop while they're standing in line and using it to write, but like doing what other people don't do, that's how I've created like my first work of fiction, right? Writing just 15 minutes a day, when I have, at the drop of a hat, the ability to just be able to open the computer and write a few sentences. Thinking outside the box like that has allowed me to accomplish a lot I wouldn't have normally otherwise accomplished.
Yeah, well said. I did a little funny video of me doing jumping jacks and stretches and yoga at the airport once for my second channel, just for shits and giggles, because it seems so obvious. Like, everyone's just sitting there like a bunch of a-holes what are you doing? Like, do something. And also another thing that upsets me, people always like, as soon as they say, okay, we're boarding, everybody gets up and just stands in that line for like half an hour. And I'm just there stretching or working and moving around. And once everyone gets on the plane at the last second, then I'll get on the plane and sit right down instead of standing there like an asshole for half an hour. It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
Go stand in line, but do upright rows and single arm chainsaw rows with your handbag. Right? Yeah. Get in a bicep, a trap, and a shoulder workout while you're standing there. I mean, like you're totally right, man. We're on the same page.
We're totally on the same page. You said in one of your interviews, very interesting, you were talking about hunting, and you said that, because you were asked basically, what about people who are angry that you're hunting? And you said that, you really honored the life of any animal that you would take to feed yourself. And I kind of heard you say that, and I got the vibe that, you had a spiritual side. There was some level of consciousness in that statement. And so, I wanted to ask you, and this is a big part of what this podcast is about, how important is your spiritual connection for you, and sort of what is your personal relationship with spirit, the universe, God, that divisive word, God, but what is that for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so in terms of spirituality, not just spirituality as far as the belief in a higher power, right? The belief that we are more than just chunks of sinew and flesh and blood flying through the planet at, the speed of light, just waiting to die and then rinse, wash, and repeat our carbon. The idea that there is like a story for your life, that if you think about like J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, that you're a character in this giant storybook that's already been written for your life, it's kind of a fun way to live versus this depressing thought that, just everybody's just walking around trying to survive and then dying, right? Like I like that idea that we're all part of this greater story that higher powers have designed for our life. And, in addition to that, just this idea that there is a spiritual dimension. And it's really tied to, everything from plant-based medicines to quantum physics, right? We know, for example, that the heart's cells vibrate at about 530 to 540 hertz. We know that that's also, if you were to say like pray over water, or you to think positive thoughts about water, the actual cells, the H2O molecules start to vibrate at that same frequency. A lot of people scoff at this, but that's just basic quantum physics. It's the same reason why, like, if you think thoughts of love while you're around someone, they can actually sense that, and their heart rate variability, meaning like the space between each heartbeat, like the time interval between each heartbeat, it starts to vary a little bit. Their heart rate variability does what's called increases, which indicates better strength of the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's like this tie between like the biological and the invisible, like fourth dimension world. And so there's all these moving pieces, but what it comes down to is that not only is there a biological, physical, physiological reaction to thoughts like love and gratitude and peace and joy, and that changes the actual frequency with which our cells vibrate, but then there's also a huge amount of longevity and happiness and satisfaction that comes from almost like knowing that someone else or something else is in charge, that there's like a higher power and a greater story written for your life, and all you got to do is just be here and live life and see what's coming at you. Look at life as like a series of moving targets and adapt and respond to the things that come at you in life, and then just have the trust and the faith that everything's going to work out okay, because the story's already been written and you're just out there playing it out. So yeah, I'm a big believer in not only the spiritual, but also almost like the invisible quantum physics nature of our existence. And that's about as woo-woo as I think I'm going to get on a Monday morning.
No, the woo is where the good stuff's at, dude.
Yeah.
That's where the good stuff is at. Have you ever had like a profound feeling of connection to all that is, like a moment of satsang, they call it, or God realization?
Yeah, usually. Well, probably the most profound was a couple of psilocybin trips. One in Hawaii, and one in California. Like higher dose psilocybin, like 5 to 6 grams, where I really had like a deep spiritual and nature connection. Had my journal. I'll never go on like a deep trip like that without a journal and something to write something down. And the ability to just like be in a quiet spot in a nature setting and then hear what God has to say to me, right? Like what the spiritual dimension actually has to tell me once I've made that deeper connection with plant-based medicine. And I've certainly had some pretty intense breakthroughs as far as, for example, really having the faith to live life at a little bit bigger level as far as my thoughts about what my business is capable of and what I'm capable of, in terms of the change that I can make in the world from, a health and a fitness and a happiness standpoint, and then being able to bring that message of like total mind, body, and spirit optimization to the world and thinking on a much bigger scale than just like, making a silly YouTube video or, just having a podcast, but instead creating like a globally recognizable company, right? Which is what I'm in the process of doing right now. None of that would have happened had it not been for me just like, wandering down the beach on psilocybin, completely open to the message that the universe would bring to me. So yeah, I've certainly had breakthroughs like that, usually in the presence of plant-based medicine.
I'm really glad to hear that, because so many people and entrepreneurs especially, they really get caught up in this money trap, this whole thing of, and I know you're a successful dude, obviously, but people get caught up in that success, and then suddenly they're like, how do I make more money? How do I be more successful? How do I get more recognition? And they get so caught up in that, it really is a trap. And a lot of the gurus, and I've been reading a lot. I mean, I'm really heavily on that journey, the spiritual journey now, and they really warn against that. It's fine to have money, but to get caught up into that and to actually, if that comes at a cost of your connection to source and just having that love and just recognizing that we're all actually one. It can be brutal, and I've met people. And I've had clients who are multi-millionaires, and like really successful guys. They're not happy because they just don't understand that there's something greater than themselves, and all they do is look at themselves as, I have to have more money, I have to have more success, and what's the point? It really is, what the fuck is the point? If you're not enjoying it, if you're not at peace.
And granted, like, money buys freedom, and freedom can give you happiness. Freedom can also give you the ability to be able to like go volunteer in your local community and make a big difference in people's lives. Like, best case scenario, you make a lot of money, and then you also use that money to give you the freedom to be able to go out and help a lot of people, right? So that's what I think is like the best 1-2 combo is you have financial independence, but at the same time, you're not just using that financial independence on like yachts and movies and cocaine and hookers or whatever your hedonistic pleasure is, but you're using that to go out and change the world. I mean, there's even guys like, I know he probably gets a lot of flack, but guys like Tony Robbins, right? He's financially independent, he does pretty well, and so now he's just like feeding like millions of people, which I think is amazing, and for me and my local community, just to be able to have that freedom to go out and, like my kids and I go to the nursing home every couple of weeks and we play music at night for the residents there. And, we coordinate a local food drive for one poor school in our community where the kids can't eat on the weekends unless they get meals delivered to them. So I coordinate a group of volunteers, right, to pick up meals and go and deliver food boxes to these kids every week. So every Thursday they get a meal delivery. Those are things that I might not have the time to do if I didn't have some amount of success, in my own business as an author and a speaker and a health consultant. And so, I'm of the opinion that, yeah, you hustle and you make money, but you don't make money so you can like buy a Tesla and, have the most expensive champagne at the strip club, but so that you can really like make a difference in people's lives and help that many more people.
Couldn't have said it better, but it's just, again, it's having that balance and not getting sucked in. Another thing you said that really resonated with me is just listening. That ability to listen, because most people, as you deal with a lot of clients. Most people don't listen in a conversation, even to what you're really saying. They're up in their heads. They're worried about other stuff. And certainly, people don't listen to the universe. They don't, and they're so disconnected. They cannot hear when the universe is like, you should be doing this, and they're not feeling into themselves. And that's why people are so lost. And what I started doing that changed my life just recently, a few months ago. One of my spiritual teachers told me there was a woman who's basically a Christian mystic, and she did a practice where she would just sit and listen to God for 3 hours every morning. And I was like, well, 3 hours is a long time. But when I heard it, I was like, you know what? I have to do that. And I started just 15 minutes, just sit down in the morning and just maybe put on some Tibetan monks chanting or something. And I'd literally just put my thoughts and my energy field out into the universe. And I would just be like, okay, I'm open. I'm listening. And boy, I could tell you... wow, it totally changed my life. Like the information about who I am and what I'm supposed to do and breakthroughs I dealt with, my certain fears I had just literally vanished out of my body. I realized that, that we're all here for a reason, and that there's nothing to worry about ever because we're all divinely protected all the time. It was so profound just to shut the fuck up, turn my mind off for 15 minutes and listen. Can't recommend it enough. And I meet people and they're like, well, how you've changed. And I'm like, yeah, dude, sit down and breathe and listen.
Most people can't
amazing.
deal with the silence. Most people really can't deal with the silence. In our era of MP3 players and iPhones and social media, and I don't want to sound like a broken record because I know there's a lot of people out there saying this, but not a lot of people doing it. Like having a period of time each day where you simply dwell in your own silence. Probably the best book about this, even though it doesn't sound like it'd be a book about silence, it's called Reclaiming Conversation. And it's just about like kind of cutting ourselves off from this constant flow of information and stimulation, and instead being inside our own heads, or, just sitting and talking to people and looking at them in the eyes and having physical connections. It's called Reclaiming Conversation. Really good book about this, but yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you, and I think everybody should have at least one point during every single day where they're simply sitting with themselves silently. And it could be 2 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be a walk, it could be you deciding that you're going to do your entire workout, like breathing through your nose without an MP3 player on, and just turn it into like this deep meditative session. I mean, there's more than one way to skin the cat, but yeah, you're 100% on key. You have to have a period of time, preferably each day, where you're just quiet with yourself, dwelling on your own thoughts, listening to your own body, and connecting preferably with some kind of like a higher power or spiritual energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been said before, but truly all the wisdom and knowledge is within us. But if we're disconnected and we're not even listening to or feeling into ourselves, how can we, do you know what I mean? It's just so important. And I was going to ask as well, like, during which activities do you personally feel that divine connection?
For me, it's walks. I go on a lot of like quiet walks where I actually will do like Qigong-esque three treasures moves while I'm walking. So I'll bring my arms up over my head and take some deep breaths and out in front of my body, and then kind of down by my hips, and I'll imagine like a pillar of light coming up from the ground through my body, up through my head, back down to the earth as I'm walking. So, kind of similar to what folks would do during like standing Qigong, except I'll turn it into more like a moving meditation. Another time that I'll do that is in the morning when I wake up. The very first thing that I do is I pull out my gratitude journal and I'll read a devotional, and then I'll write down what truth I discovered in that day's reading, and I'll write down what I'm grateful for that day, and then I'll write down who I can help or serve or pray for that day, and then I'll just close my eyes and dwell on that for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then the third time that I'm kind of silent with myself and meditating, is as silly as this may sound, is when I'm doing cold water swimming. So every day I do like a cold water plunge, and I'll stay in the cold water for like 5 minutes, swimming back and forth underneath the water, then coming up for a breath. And the whole time, all I'm doing is just staying quiet, listening to my body, thinking about what message the universe is bringing to me. And it's kind of like this way that I shut down the pain and distract my brain a little bit, but also another way that I'm just, that I connect with my own body and with God and with my own spirit, and also a way that I, again, have that time that I'm just silent and I'm not getting distracted by other things. So yeah, walking, morning gratitude, and cold thermogenesis are three things that I'll use for that.
Awesome. I think you've already answered one potential question, which is simply, do you have like a regular spiritual practice?
Yeah, it would definitely be that morning practice of and granted, I tie it to the physiological, right? So I get up in the morning and I put on a Bluetooth enabled heart rate monitor, and I test what's called my heart rate variability, which is a good measurement of your nervous system. And if it's low, it can be a sign that day you may not want to do like high intensity exercise or weight training, and instead do something like more yoga or like easy walk based. And if it's high, that means you could probably crush it at the gym that day because your body is really primed for training. And while I'm taking that measurement with the heart rate monitor, that's the time that I use to read my devotional and to do my gratitude journaling and to pray. And then, the same thing when I'm swimming in the cold water. I'll do a lot of the walking meditation, walking prayer. And, another time that I think you can really use for deep spiritual connections, as cheesy as this may seem, is sex. I mean, like long sessions or longer sessions of just like deep spiritual tantric sex where you're just focusing on your breath and your lover and their eyes and the way that your body feels, and that breath moving kind of like up the front of your spine and down the back of your spine, very similar to like that Qigong walking type of meditation. That's also like a deeply spiritual time for me is just sex. So that's another time that I think a lot of guys don't think about it that way, but it's extremely, extremely spiritual. I mean, you being with another human spirit, another human soul in that intimate of a fashion, that can be very, very eye-opening in terms of spirituality when you're able to tap into more of like a tantric feeling during sex as well.
I got lucky. I had a buddy who was into Tantra for a very long time who taught me when I was like 19, 20, and I can tell you it served me in good stead over the years. How many times a month personally do you ejaculate?
I ejaculate just about every time I have sex because I like to. And I do understand the Ayurvedic principles behind avoiding ejaculation for the purpose of maintaining one's... I think the argument is that you maintain a little bit more of your ki, and you don't lose as much of your life force or your energy when you're engaged in that type of practice. And my problem is that
you just believe ejaculation is for pussies.
When you're a busy married guy with kids and a very busy job, and you finally find those anywhere from 1 to 3 times each week to actually enjoy sex with your loved one, it's more satisfactory to ejaculate. I'll occasionally masturbate without ejaculating to boost testosterone levels or to boost motivation or boost a little bit of ki for the day, but for the most part, I'll ejaculate just about every time I have sex, and it is on, admittedly, my not my bucket list, but my list of little hacks to try to actually go for a period of time where I'm trying sex with ejaculation as well as sex without ejaculation. But probably one thing that I will do is I'll certainly use tantric practices to orgasm without ejaculation, but usually at the end of a sexual session, I'm always ejaculating.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I generally don't. Once in a while I do, but I just find I have so much more energy when I don't, and I realize it's almost like having a hangover the next day. I just don't. It's not good, so I quit. I like my little joke too.
Well, the other thing is that in most cases I'm usually having sex in the evening, so I don't mind like falling asleep anyways. And also energy has never really been an issue for me. So maybe if my energy levels really did start to dip, I'd probably try that as an energy bestowing mechanism a little bit more intensively.
If you do, let me know how it goes. I think you'll be blown away. I know you travel. You had a really hectic schedule. I've been on the road for the last 5 years, so I'm literally just now trying to stop and have a base and stuff. It's really quite stressful. And how do you have any? Well, first, I would comment that it seems like kind of society, the Matrix, kind of, it's almost set up in a way to keep us really disconnected from ourselves, from each other. Everybody's fighting everybody. It's really unhealthy. And certainly when you're traveling, like, how do you stay grounded? Like, do you have like certain like hacks almost for like not, because you know what it's like, right? When you're out of nature, you're in a city, you're running around all the time. It fucking kills you, man. It's tough. Do you have to, like, how do you stay, sane?
Yeah, sure. There would be, in addition to some of the travel habits that I already laid out, there are, I would say, 3 things that I do. What I would say, the main 3 things that I do when I'm traveling. First of all, when I'm at home, I have a daily routine. So I have 2 different morning movement routines that I do. One is from the book True to Form by Dr. Eric Goodman, and it's a series of about 10 different moves that you do to decompress the spine and to bring more oxygen into the body and to turn on the glutes. So decompressing the spine and turning on the glutes are 2 of the best ways to maintain a really athletic, pain-free body. And so on 3 to 4 days of the week, I do the program from that book, from True to Form. It takes like 10 minutes. On the other days of the week, I do a very basic series of flexibility exercises given to me by a gymnastics coach who I've written about before on my blog named Stephen McCain. And they're just very straightforward, like 30 seconds of a split hold, 30 seconds of a bridge hold, 30 seconds of like a door frame chest stretch hold. But I alternate between one day doing that and one day doing the True to Form core foundation moves. When I am on the road, I use that routine to bring myself into the comfort and like the momentum of the day and everything else that I get at home when I'm traveling. So when I'm traveling, I use the same morning movement routine that I do when I'm at home, and there's something about that allows me to maintain some amount of structure for each day. So I take my daily home routine on the road with me, and I do the same thing when I'm traveling. Number 2 would be I always, whenever I travel anywhere, I know you were probably looking for something, not literally, when you say how do you keep yourself grounded, but I literally ground. Like everywhere I go, as soon as I get to where I'm going, I get outside barefoot, and I'll either do a yoga session, or I'll go on a barefoot walk, or I'll go find the grassy patch behind the hotel and just like stand barefoot while I go through my emails on my phone or whatever. But I get back in touch with the planet Earth, because one of the reasons that you feel so crappy after you've flown for long distance is the period of time that you've spent disconnected from the planet Earth, and the way that changes the electrical potential across your cell membranes. And you can reset that by literally getting barefoot on the earth itself, like dirt, concrete, mud, whatever. Or if you're in a situation where that would be socially inappropriate to be barefoot, there are even companies like Earth Runners or Plugs who make special shoes with carbon surfaces on the bottom of the shoes that allow you to ground yourself or earth yourself, even if you're not, wanting to be a barefoot hippie. So that would be number 2. And then I would say the third thing that I do when I travel is I always allow for, when I whether I'm at conferences, whether I'm at races, whatever, I always build in one buffer day. So a lot of my friends will be like, oh, I want to get home to my family. I want to get back to work, whatever. What I find is that I'm completely useless to my family if I walk in the door after a bout of travel and I've just got work, coming out the wazoo, and just like, all sorts of emails to catch up on and articles to write and all sorts of things I wasn't able to do when I'm traveling. I always have that one day after I travel where I literally build in an extra day when I'm going to conferences, when I'm going to races, whatever, where I'll use that one day and I will literally just like stay in my hotel room for the entire day, catch up on a crap ton of work. So by the time I get back from my bout of travel, I'm actually farther ahead on work and all those little tasks than I would have been had I not traveled, because I've just basically like spent a day locked away in my hotel. And for that, like I will literally, spend like 6 hours in my hotel working, and I'll set a clock for 20 minutes. And every 20 minutes I'll stop and I'll do, 100 jumping jacks or 30 burpees or whatever. And I'll just jam out a whole day like that before I head to the airport. And that helps me a ton too. Just like building in a buffer day when I travel, and enough buffer days spread throughout the year allow you to travel a lot and not feel like you're just like underwater after each bout of travel. So those are a few things that I use: a daily habit, grounding / earthing, and then buffer day.
Awesome. Great tips, and overall solid podcast. You're speaking at the Infinite Man Summit in Bulgaria, May 26, 28. Can we get a little sneak idea of what you might be sharing with the good folks?
There's going to be a lot of little things to talk about, but we're going to focus on a little bit of longevity, a little bit of anti-aging, a deeper dive into some of those hidden variables that I talked about, like air, light, water, electricity. Plenty of Q&A for the folks who want to ask me their burning questions on things like biohacking, anti-aging, even like some of the basic fitness and nutrition principles and more advanced fitness and nutrition principles. So a whole variety of topics, but everything focused around optimizing the human body and optimizing the human brain. So I guarantee that folks are going to get a lot out of it if they can make it over to Sofia, where I've never been, but apparently it's an amazing city.
It's a nice city with great folk. You're going to have a great time. Ben, the most important and final question. You're on death row. You get one final meal. What's it going to be?
French cut ribeye steak from this company called U.S. Wellness Meats with my wife's special glaze on it, cooked to medium rare, which is like a sear on a skillet, about 3 minutes one side, 3 minutes the other side. Toss in the oven for a little while. Serve that up with some sweet potato fries, big glass of organic red wine. I'm a happy man.
You see, I was kind of hoping you would just say something really like fuck it, give me a double Big Mac and fries, fucking lasagna, a cheesecake, just some shit. Where, you know what I mean?
Here's the deal. This whole like cheat day thing. If I'm gonna have a cheat day, I want a cheat day on dark chocolate, the best meat on the face of the planet, and amazing foods cooked in amazing ways. I don't want a cheat day on dog shit. Life's too short to eat Twinkies and French fries when, in fact, they actually don't taste all that great and your body feels super shitty afterwards. I like stuff that's amazing, luxurious food that also tastes good. So for me, if I have a cheat day, it's not going to be on dog shit. It's going to be on the good stuff. Same thing for death row.
Well, hopefully neither of us will have to face the death row situation.
Seriously.
Awesome, brother. This has been a great time, and I'm really excited about doing this event. I think it's just going to be such a blast having you there.
Word, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Peace out, man.
Later.
See you soon.